Actually, don't we? It's time. And remember, I will contact you when I'm in. Just remember to pick up the answer.
Doctor, I can report that I am inside the patient's mind. I'm having a look around now.
You put the lime in the coconut. 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 You put the
I think this patient's beyond our help.
You put
Ladies and gentlemen, today we're taking a look at a game by an indie studio called White Paper Games. In a time of dull and repetitive games, copycats, and endless regurgitations of the same formula by an endless amount of game studios, it's refreshing to see a game studio take a chance with something a bit off the beaten path. So pull up a chair and get ready to experience a bit of crazy, as today we're delving into the world of Ether 1. The story of Ether 1 begins with your character, a restorer as they're called, entering the laboratory where you've been tasked to restore the mind of one of the patients. In this case, the patient is suffering from dementia, which is the overall theme and focus of the game. A basic puzzle introduces you to the mechanics of picking up and moving objects, as well as the style of puzzle you can expect throughout the course of the game. And then you take your place in a rather ominous looking chair. After a fancy and somewhat terrifying sequence that involves a lot of moving parts and some sort of liquid filling the chamber you're in, you'll find yourself at a seaside town built near a mine. No, you haven't magically been transported anywhere. Rather, you are inside the fragmented memories of the patient you've been tasked to restore. From here, you must explore each area while the doctor on the outside talks to you about a variety of topics along the way. Describing the story is difficult as Ether 1 is more of an experience than a game. There's certainly a very good story here, but in order to figure it out, you need to locate a number of ribbons in each area. The ribbons are accompanied by dialogue that helps you further understand one more piece of the story. Now, in addition to these ribbons, there are also a variety of puzzles. The early puzzles are easy enough, but they continue to increase in difficulty as you progress. The developers of Ether 1 took inspiration from old school games like Myst, where you had to track down clues, take notes, and sometimes even draw out symbols so that you could ultimately put together all the pieces later on and solve the puzzle. For many people, this will be too much effort, but the reward is that you unlock additional memories that help give you further insight into the story. Also, the more you unlock, the better ending you get. From what the developers have said, there are multiple endings based on what you unlock. The good thing here is that you can go back to areas you didn't complete after you beat the game, so that you're able to work towards the remainder of the endings if you so choose. The game clocks in at around 3 hours if you just play the game and skip the puzzles. Almost all of the puzzles in the game are optional, so if puzzles aren't your thing, then you don't need to worry about doing them. If you do the puzzles, however, this can add a few more hours onto that time depending on how fast you're able to solve them. Ether 1 is also the first of 2 planned games in the series, with the second iteration being called Ether 2 by White Paper Games. No release date is available for this game yet, but Ether 2 is supposed to complete the story that Ether 1 began. With that being said, I'd give the game a point under play for the story. The game takes a very serious affliction and manages to wrap an enticing and interesting story around it to draw you further in. My opinion is that your main reason to play this game is for the story, so I'm also going to give a game a point on don't play for that. The reason for this is, simply, if you don't care about stories in video games, which is certainly a trait that many people do share, then there's very little reason for you to pick up Ether 1. Now the gameplay. Usually this is my longest section when it comes to game analysis, but In this case, there's not actually a whole lot to say due to the nature of the game. Ether 1 uses a standard WASD layout and mouse looking for movement. Movement feels good and the interactions with the world are clean without any real annoyances. This game must have been tagged as a walking simulator on Steam, and that's not too far from the truth, though I do appreciate the attention to detail. For example, when you're walking or sprinting down or upstairs, there's an appropriate amount of head bob and general movement so you actually feel like you're moving across stairs. Many games simply have you slide up or down stairs without taking into account how it would actually look from the eyes of the person navigating them. Like I said earlier, Ether 1 is more of an experience in the game, similar to Dear Esther. You move through the world, obtain ribbons, solve some puzzles, and listen to the doctor as she talks to you along the way. If you search each level, there are usually notes, papers, journals, and even answering machines that you can read or listen to, which further add to the experience. One interesting aspect of the game is that along the way there are memories that you need to fix or restore, as your name suggests. These involve using a lantern you find in the world to destroy objects that appear as crystals. Each time you do this, there's a distortion of sorts in the patient's mind, and this leads you to some rather trippy scenes where you fly through parts of the fractured memories. These are quite interesting and really adds to the overall atmosphere of the game. Another thing that is integral to the game is the main hub that you can teleport back to at any time. This hub allows you to go store items, go back to previous memories, and that's sort of a mental stronghold for your character that they can return to at any time. One thing I find fantastic about this setup is that once you're done in the central hub, you can teleport to the exact spot you left off at in the previous level. Since you can only hold one item at a time and some later puzzles require multiple items to solve, this allows you to go back and retrieve these items without significant travel time. Now, the downside here is that it would have been easier and more streamlined to simply have an inventory system. It is a little silly that you can't carry more than one item at a time when you think about it. For gameplay, I give Ether 1 a point under play, as it's a very solid experience, made even better if you happen to have an Oculus Rift to utilize with it. The overall design here is well thought out and well done, with no true negatives that detract from the gameplay experience. The graphics in Ether 1 are quite nice, especially with this being an indie developer. One of the cool things about this game, as I briefly mentioned earlier, is that it supports the Oculus Rift. So if you're looking for something to try with your new dev kit, then this would be the ideal game for it. The overall aesthetic of the seaside town, the dreariness of the abandoned mine you have to traverse through, and the look of the sea as you're walking to the lighthouse are all pleasing to the eye. Many games have poor looking water, but I feel that they've done a great job with the ocean here. Imagine if you were using the Rift to play Ether 1, you'd almost feel the spray of the water on your face as you're walking along the coast. While each part of the game is separated into sections that offer limited exploration, they've done a good job of balancing the texture quality with the size of the world. Ether 1 isn't a long game or a large game by any means, but I'd say it's just the right size for the story it's trying to tell. Could it be larger? More open? Sure, but I don't feel it would really add anything to the game. This is the type of game that does well with the smaller map sizes, as it has a singular goal that wouldn't really work well in larger maps. My only real complaint about the overall world design is that it's sometimes difficult to tell what you can and can't interact with. Objects tend to blend into the environment, and sometimes it's not obvious that they can be interacted with. This can lead to frustration as you attempt to solve some of the more difficult puzzles later on, since you're not entirely certain what you can or can't use. On the flip side, there's many objects that you can interact with, but they serve no purpose. Being that you can only hold one item at a time, this can also lead to frustration as you have to either store the item in a cubby back in the main hub, or pick up items until you find the correct one. This complaint is a minor one, however, and doesn't really detract much from the game at the end of the day. For graphics, I give the game a point under play. The unique graphical style and overall aesthetic of the world that White Paper Games built all come together to create a detailed, mysterious, and sometimes creepy experience that you'll remember for a long time to come. At last we get into the sound. The sound design in Ether 1 has a large focus on ambient noise. While the music never really overpowers any scene, it's always present when it's needed. There's times when you find yourself moving without music, but you'll have other sounds that fill the silence. The sounds of your feet crunching on gravel or splashing through water. Sounds of industry as machine gears grind somewhere in the distance. As you're walking through the world, the doctor will randomly comment on the things you see along the way. Her voice actor does a good job of playing the role of the interested but detached doctor who is interested in seeing you succeed, but motivated by her own personal reasons. Your character never speaks during the journey, so you play the role of the silent protagonist. The other voice actor is a mysterious female who makes some rather haunted comments along the way. It's not apparent as to who she is until you reach the end of the game, but it's apparent that she's important to the overall story as it continues. One thing I appreciate in the sound design is that the music is generally accompanied by string instruments and pianos, which give the perfect overtones to each area. The long, drawn-out notes add to the feeling of sadness as you move through the patient's memories. This isn't a happy story by any means, and the music does a good job of representing that. For music and overall sound design, I give the game a point under play. For many games, music is a forgettable aspect because it doesn't really add anything to the game. In Aether 1, the music is tied in with the game's environment so well that it completes the experience in a haunting but beautiful fashion. To wrap things up, Aether 1 is a type of game that comes along every now and then, which covers a sensitive but very serious topic. For younger gamers, the story may be a bit over their heads, and even for older gamers, the puzzles may be a bit too time-consuming or frustrating for them to want to do them. At $20 USD on Steam, the game may also be a bit steep for others, since in terms of gameplay and overall game time, it doesn't really offer a lot. For players that want a game that's more of a game and less of a storytelling experience, you might want to skip Aether 1 entirely, or wait until it ends up in an inevitable Steam sale at a lower price. However, for those that do want the experience that Aether 1 offers, I would wholeheartedly recommend it. If you've ever encountered someone with dementia, or if you've ever known someone personally, whether a friend or family member, that's had it, then you'll understand and connect with the story in a way that few others will. The final score for Aether 1 is overwhelmingly positive, so I hope you'll take the time to support this indie developer and their game. For a 6-man team, I feel they put more soul into their game than many AAA developers, so hopefully they've had enough sales to propel them onto developing Aether 2 and finishing the beautiful story they put together. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. This is Strikeout, checking out.